Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. To start, you have this legacy now of telling these stories of like kind of out of place beings finding their way. When you adapt something like Wild Robot and you have this character like Roz who does have to learn to be accepting of this new world, what for you is the fun of getting to tell a story like that from a different perspective since you have told a story similar with similar themes in the past?
I think the fun of doing this is the mission of taking a moment that I read in a book like Peter Brown's and getting that up onto a screen, making it big, keeping everything intact, but scaling it, I think is an absolute thrill. When I read these things, I hear music in my head and I see visuals, and I get so incredibly excited about them, and 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 getting those up onto the screen intact, if not bigger, is that's the whole thing that I think gets us through the many years that it takes to make these. And I also have to say that we have so many incredibly and talented people on these films. The list goes on, and I could sit here all day and like talk about each and every one of them and their gifts that they bring to the process. So it's a marathon for us. It takes a long time, but every step of the process, it gets better and better and better. And you design the characters, then you paint the backgrounds, and then you capture the voices, and then the animation starts coming in, and ultimately the last thing that happens is the sound, the score. It doesn't happen at the end; it happens throughout. But we do actually go to a scoring session at the end of this entire process. I can't tell you how amazing it is to, in the case of this, we went to Air Studios in London where we assembled an orchestra, and I watch Chris do his thing. And with all, he has a team of people as well. And that moment is so stunningly awesome. I cannot tell you how incredible it is. Yeah.
When it's so fun for me to kind of see, you know, these stories still getting told and adapted because I grew up in the 90s and like watched a lot of like the golden age of Disney, but now it's like we're still getting unique animated stories for kids to kind of dive into and learn from. And this one I think is so important. When you started to work on this and adapt this, what for you was like the moment from the original book that you were like, yeah, I think this needs to be a movie so that kids can also see this and experience read it.
God, I mean, every single piece of it. That sounds like a bit of a cop out, but it's true. Every single piece of it. However, there are parts that I was particularly focused on, and I would say these are pivot points in the story. One of the interesting things about the book, as well as the movie, is there is a massive climactic moment that occurs dead center of this film, and that is this migration, and it's a massive migration. Of course, this there's a timetable. There's an ancient timetable that these animals must follow. And Roz has a ticking clock. She's got to get Bright Bill ready for this migration. And so that event is so monumental that I needed to make that scale the proper size. However, I think the very welcome challenge was to not let the film like fall from that point and be a we don't want to peak in the middle and then like not equal that. So the challenge to top that by the end of the film was a very welcome challenge, and I think our artists and Chris Bowers accomplished it.
Yeah. When you also have a quote unquote crazy cast because it's you have a lot of heavy hitters kind of playing these characters and lending their voices. When you are going through the casting process and you're working on like
Mm.
trying to find the perfect voice for Roz and just filling the cast, what for you is the most important part, especially for Roz, of like finding Lupita and making sure that that voice was like what we all kind of needed to guide this story?
First and foremost, I have to credit Christy Soper, our casting director. It's a part of this process that is critical. I'm not good at coming up with names. When people ask me, I'm like, I don't know, and I come up with names. I'm not the best. Christy Soper, this is what she does. It is her art, and she was the person that suggested Lupita. It was our first choice. Initially, the thing I noticed was just the quality of Lupita's voice. It's beautiful. It's warm. You could very much imagine that if a big corporation wanted to find the perfect voice for a robot to put you at ease, it would be Lupita's voice. But beyond that, Lupita's inventiveness, she's frankly, I think she's a genius. She really shaped this character, and she wanted to dive into understanding how Roz thinks. And so she and I would sit for upwards of an hour before our recording sessions just talking about how does Roz think? Because we needed to decipher things so that she understood and I understood exactly what Roz is all about so that we could properly write her. Because once an actor joins the production, we rewrite. I will customize for that actor, and it's an ongoing thing. It's a collaboration, very much so. But I must credit Lupita for the creation of this voice and for really, truly taking the lead in defining and creating the dimensional Roz that you hear.
Well, yeah, and how is it for you? Because, I was 10 when Lilo and Stitch came out, so that was like my whole personality. But you wrote and played a character who doesn't really have words to kind of formulate a lot of what he's feeling and saying, and like you get snippets. But now you're kind of dealing with a character that is similar in like they're in a place that they don't know and they have to adapt, but you get to use like a full vocabulary to explain kind of what's going on. How was it kind of adjusting to that mindset of like, well, at least Roz can explain what's going on in her mind?
It's nice to have a full vocabulary. You know, with Lilo and Stitch, we never intended to have him speak any words in English at the beginning. We thought he was just going to be pure pantomime, and as the process that evolved, we realized words were going to have to come into the whole thing. But the idea of a character lost in a wilderness, it's interesting that there are some tonal similarities, and to revisit that, but in a completely different way. I'm a really lucky person.
When it's so nice to see, like I think we're in the age of where we're like robots bad, robots get away from us. We don't like robots. And to have the story where it is like a robot learning and kind of understanding like, oh, I have to figure out how I'm going to survive is weirdly comforting and nice. Um, when you are telling a story like that though, is it do you think about like, oh well, people are talking about AI and the conversations over here, but we're telling this very nice story about this sweet robot?
It's a very human story. It's curious that the whole AI thing began to really rise up
Mm.
during the production. It was not there at the beginning. We never discussed it. And of course, Peter Brown wrote the story years before that. So they kind of paralleled in a way. I agree that it's. I mean, Roz is a learning robot, so we would
Mm.
assume that she's got on board enough whatever you would call it, that she can adapt, which is a feature of the book. Um, but she's benevolent and she's kind. And I think that's the interesting thing about a robot movie, almost all the time, is you get to tell very human stories with them.
Mhm.
And we have a lot to learn from her. And in a larger sense, I think that we work out our relationship with technology. We'll always be working it out. And the interesting thing is, you notice the style of the film. Our technology has been advancing and advancing, but it advanced to a point that allowed us now to hand paint everything. So there is no computer-led anything in this film. It's all human made. And it was our computers that got us to the point that allowed us back into the process fully. So it's a fascinating thing that's going on here, right? That's the kind of like balance that is going on, I guess, if that's the right way to say it.
Well, yeah, and I think, with a movie like this, that I love that it's hand painted because it is very visually beautiful to look at. But for you, you said yourself, Roz is a learning robot. There was a lot of learning that came with the process. What was the one thing that you yourself learned throughout making and adapting the wild robot that you were like surprised that it was like a new thing that you were experiencing with this movie?
To be specific about it, filmmaking techniques I took away from this. I always learn something. Every production I snowball, I learn things I bring along with me. In this particular production, there were two different things I did that I'd never done before, which is doing what we call a oneer, which is a massive shot that goes on and on and on and on. And that is technically a huge challenge for animation, for production, and the camera movement is a big thing. We have two of them in this film. And what I learned is it's worth the effort. 25 shots that would be the same length or longer do not equal the impact of a oneer, and it's worth the effort. We have a scene in the lodge where the animals are going after each other and attacking each other, and the shot goes on and on and on, and it was so much work to get it done, but once that shot was complete, I was so struck by how efficient it was. I felt fully satisfied, and we wanted for nothing after that shot. Everything after that was gravy as far as like, adding to it narratively. The other thing that we did was we have three time lapses in the film, and that had never been done before by me. I'd never worked on something like that. And again, as a storytelling element, it was a very powerful thing, and I will always remember those things. I'm not sure if I'll ever need a time lapse again. That's very specific, but from now on, I will always consider a oneer to be very worth the effort.
Yeah, and I want to ask a fun question because I do think, Roz gets to kind of be Snow White in the sense that she's like, the animals are my friends now. And I do think that's very fun because I've often been like, oh, what animal would I want to be my friend? If you got stuck in the wilderness like Roz and you had to kind of adapt and learn and become friends, do you have a specific animal that you're like, that's the one I want to be my friend?
Wolverine. I want a wolverine to be my friend. It's the world's largest weasel. They are so incredibly powerful. They're the coolest animal. And I saw a whole thing on TV where I don't know how it happened, but there was a guy who has a friendly trained wolverine, and they were training it to find people that were buried in avalanches. And I think no animal on Earth, maybe save for a polar bear, has a more powerful nose. And add to that, the power of the power of a wolverine. And yes, and we have one in the film. And
Mm.
so, as we were going through animals and designing them, that was me just going, and I want a wolverine. And at the end of every meeting, I'm like, how's the wolverine coming along? Can I see the wolverine? And he's in there, and I love my wolverine.
Love it. The last question I want to ask, it's very exciting this is coming out. A lot of adults are going to cry, which I think is a real good testament of an animated film that the adults crying, kids are like, I don't know why you're crying. But for you, what are you most excited about audiences getting to see the wild robot?
Oh, there's so many sequences. It's just a flat out beautiful film. I'm anxious for them to see like the migration scene, and there's a scene in the middle of the film where the island is shutting down for winter that I think is absolutely the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in an animated film, period. Maybe in any film. I'm also very excited for people to hear it. Chris Bauer's score is stunning, awesome. It's like those things you see at movie, stunning, awesome, like all this stuff in quotes.
It's just
But
you. You went on the press email. It's just you.
exactly. Imagine those around my head as we're saying this. But what he accomplished, he weaves the equivalent of magic into these films, and he is such a talent. I am so lucky. The talent on this film is, you cannot overstate the scale of the talent. And Chris Bowers, I personally, selfishly believe this is the best thing he's ever written. He is extremely, well, not extremely, like he's not a child, but he's young, and he's at the beginning of his career, and I just feel like this is just, I selfishly believe this is the best thing he's written so far.
Oh, I can't wait for everyone to see it. Before I leave, I have to tell you, thank you. My whole family knows I love Lilo and Stitch, and my nephew was born on Stitch Day, and so they were like,
626?
yeah. And so everyone was like, Rachel, Will was born on 66, and then I got to show his older sister, my niece, Lilo and Stitch for the first time because I was like, can I show her Lilo and Stitch? And normally when I'm home, I have a bunch of Stitch stuff, but I was like, oh, I get to talk to Chris Saunders. I can't wait.
That's me. Yeah, I, I, I love how he has stuck around. I love that I walk down the street, I constantly see Stitch on things, and I always think like, my friend told me this once. He said, you never know who you're standing next to, and yeah, so many times I'm lurking behind people looking at their backpacks.
You know who I am.
If you wear your Stitch backpack, I may be lurking behind you looking at it.
That's how they come with you. Like the backpacks just come with you following behind the backpack in the mail.
Once in a while, I will identify myself. I always like, is this going to be weird? I'm like, excuse me.
Excuse me, that's me.
Don't be
But
scared. I'm going to talk to you.
but thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait for everyone to get to see the wild robot.
I thank you so much for your support. I really, really appreciate it.